What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 30 of Breaking Bats, presented to you by Not For Long Media. I'm your host, Brian O'Grady, and with me, as always, my co-host, Justin Ayers. Before we get started, I gotta say on here a big thank you to Justin for knocking everything out on his own last week. That was huge. I was having having some things going on, so Justin did it all by himself, which I very, very much appreciate. He's the best. And without him, this podcast would be nothing. So thank you, Justin. I appreciate it, brother. Appreciate you, brother. And how you doing today? I know you're tired.
Very tired. A lot of stuff going on in my life, but I do appreciate the kind words that mean a lot. Yeah, it was fun last week. I got to do my solo radio, my Colin Cowherd edition of the Breaking Bats podcast. So hopefully it turned out okay. And yeah, it's cool to have that ability to do that, because sometimes we think about the Cowherds or these guys that are the Jim Romes that do solo radio for all these years, and we forget how hard it is to just talk to yourself about stuff like that. So, knock the rust off a little bit, break that skill out again, but no problem doing that. I'm glad you're back though, buddy. Happy to have you. And we have a lot of stuff in the baseball world, and we also have a conversation with a very cool, hopefully recurring guest to this podcast, which we'll talk about briefly. But yeah, welcome back. It's great to have you.
Thanks, man. Good to be back. Yeah, it is not easy. As you know, I'm a Colin Cowherd guy. And as you know, I'm not really sure why, but I am. So I appreciate that stuff, and we got a lot going on this week. And yeah, the interview was great. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but let's talk about who this episode is first sponsored by before we get into everything.
Of course. So this episode of the Breaking Bats podcast is brought to you by our friends at Som Sleep. If you're like me and you have trouble getting enough sleep at night, Som Sleep has you covered. The scientifically advanced Som snack includes ingredients that are naturally found in your body like GABA, magnesium, and melatonin. Sleep is the best form of recovery, and it's helped people everywhere take their games to the next level. It's simple. All you have to do is drink one serving in just 30 minutes before you go to bed, and your body will naturally calm itself down. Other sleep supplements leave you feeling groggy in the morning, but not Som Sleep. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to conquer the day. Go to getsom.com, click shop, and enter the code BATS. That's BATS at checkout for 10% off your entire order of Som Sleep. In the news category this week, we have some pretty cool, like big overarching topics that are affecting the game of baseball right now. Aaron Judge. We'll start with Aaron Judge and the historic, record-setting pace that he's on in terms of home runs. So Aaron Judge hit his 54th home run of the season the other day. I think he's tied Alex Rodriguez for the most home runs in a single season by a right-handed batter in Yankees history. So, even if he doesn't hit another one, he can always hang his hat on. I tied A-Rod for right-handed Yankee batter. But that's not the record we're interested in about. We really want to figure out if he's going to get that 61, that Roger Maris number. As of now, with his 54th home run, he's on pace for 65. Good God. The Yankees have, I think, 26 games left, maybe 25, depending on the day you're listening to this. It's been incredible. I feel like every time I look, he has another one. This guy's pace and his WAR entering Monday, which was 8.5, which, yes, 8.5 WAR, and the season's not even done yet. We have a month left. So, the pace that Aaron Judge is on is insane. I think we had a conversation a couple weeks back about could he get to 61? I think it's more so a matter of when he'll get to 61. Am I right?
Yeah, I said at the time that he would get to 60, and that's crazy. It was crazy then when I said it, and I know I was saying it at the time, but now it's even crazier. I mean, I think he's homered in like 3 straight games now. I mean, swing is so good. He's obviously very big and powerful. So he just barrels it up, man, and it's going. But he barrels it up consistently. So I can't wait to see where the number ends. But this guy, man, talk about making yourself some money. They say one win is worth like $8 million. So his WAR is at 8.5. So I'm not a math guy, but 8 times 8, I believe, is 64. So I don't know if he's going to get 64 a season, but he's just looking better and better for turning down whatever contract the Yankees offered him at the time. And I'm a proponent of guys getting paid and taking money, but it's definitely looking like Judge did the right thing here. And honestly, throughout the year, if the Yankees didn't have him, it would not be good. But truly, since the injuries really started to pile up and they've kind of had their, I'm not going to say collapse, but their big downturn, losing Carpenter and other guys. If they didn't have him, man, they would maybe not be leading the AL East at all at this point. I mean, I think they're 5 games up now, and it was at 15 at one point. The Tampa series, he was scored or knocked in, like was responsible for all 3 runs they scored. Something ridiculous, like in the series. So, man, what a season he's having, and I would love to see him hit 65 or whatever it is. I'd love to see. I hope he hits 60. It'd be great to see.
I went back and I looked, and I forgot what the exact number was of the contract he turned down. But just to remind everybody out there, this is what Bet It On Yourself looks like. He turned down 8 years and $230.5 million. And he's going to go out there and he's going to go break Roger Maris's home run record. So that's in the biz what we like to call betting on yourself and having it pay off. So I looked. He had so after not homering in a season-long 9-game stretch, he's now hit 8 home runs in his last 13 games. I think this article's from yesterday, but yeah, I mean, this guy it's insane the kind of run he's been on. I just can't wait for this offseason. I can't wait for all the Yankees fans to lose their mind when he eventually signs with somebody other than them, maybe the crosstown rival Mets, maybe the Orioles, which we teased in our interview today with Ryan Ripken. Never say never. They want to open up the checkbook, but I cannot wait for the season to end and figure out where he's going to go, because it ain't New York.
The Yankees have to resign him. I just can't even comprehend. Like, if you're not going to pay that guy, who are you going to pay? Because he can obviously handle New York. He's like the captain there. He's got a great personality for it. He's super low key. Like, I mean, he's responsible. You don't worry about him going out and making bad decisions and making the headlines, for something stupid. Like, and he's gonna hit all these homers. Like, if you don't pay him, who are you gonna pay? Who are you gonna pay? He is like, he's it. How can it not be him? So, listen, I would love to see him mix it up and end up somewhere else. That would be insane. But if the Yankees have to, they have to. They have no choice. And he can just sit there with like his feet up on the desk and be like, nah, 400 sounds pretty good. I don't know. It's just unbelievable. Good for him. Good for him.
30 years old. Yeah, just demand a 10-year deal. Anything he demands, the back end of that will be horrific. But it'll be like, hey, you know what? What else are you going to do? Let me walk? Is that what you want to do? So I can't wait for the offseason in that. But the other thing with Aaron Judge right now is AL MVP conversation. Because you're right. You mentioned in your little explanation there was like, if the Yankees don't have Aaron Judge, where would they be? Like right now, you're right. They have a 5-game lead over the Rays right now. They're 81 and 54 as of taping on Tuesday night. But it's like, yeah, you're right. If Judge wasn't there, I don't know what their record would look like. But the same could probably, not be said for Shohei Ohtani, because he's on the LA Angels and they stink. The Angels are 59 and 76 and they're 28 games out of first. And they have Mike Trout. So the 2 best players of baseball can't help that team. But it's an interesting conversation with MVP, because it's like, and it always comes up where it's like, could you give it to the best player on a bad team? And there's always going to be a debate. MLB Network will probably have that here coming soon, where it'll be like, well, the most valuable player is only valuable on a team that's good. So, Shohei this year, 2.58 ERA on the mound. And at the plate, he has 32 homers and he's batting .270. So we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, but there should probably just be like the Babe Ruth Award for the best, two-way player, because if we're just going to give it to Shohei every year because he pitches, it's not fair to Judge.
Yes. And this is exactly what I was saying to you before. What Ohtani does is truly amazing. It really is. To pitch and hit at the level that he does is just absurd. There's no other way to put it. There's nobody else that's ever done it. I don't think anybody else will ever do it. He's a freak, and there's no doubt about it. But giving like I said this to you too. I don't want to knock him because he's so good at both. Like, but does he just get MVP every year because he pitches too? You know, if he has solid numbers as a hitter, I mean those are good numbers. Don't get me wrong, those are good numbers, but they're not Judge's numbers. And Judge's team is better, but in my opinion, you can get an MVP being on a bad team. If your numbers warrant that, I'd still think you should win. But in this season in particular, I don't think Ohtani should be the most valuable player. I think it should be Judge. I think Judge's season has been unbelievable. I think truly the Yankees, if you take him out of that lineup, I don't know what kind of team they would have been the entire year, even when healthy, without him. But yeah, the Ohtani thing, man, it's just really interesting to me because I fight like myself. It's just so amazing what he does, but at the same time, I don't like the idea that just because he does both, all like he has to win the MVP every year. I don't think that's fair to um, whoever else has a phenomenal season. Like, but I honestly this year I think Judge is doing enough that it's not going to be that much of a debate.
I think that's the only way to really settle this argument is if Judge continues to lead the league in all these offensive categories, which he is. There's like he's either leading the American League or leading baseball in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 categories offensively this year. So what he's doing with the bat right now is pretty special. I think it warrants an MVP. But yeah, you're right. If you want to take into consideration Ohtani and the pitching has been fantastic, the hitting has been good, but it's not Judge level. So I can't wait for that debate again in the offseason. The offseason pods we're going to have this year are going to be there's not going to be any shortage of things to talk about because between MVP, where Judge will go, there's just we could sit here we could do like a 3-hour offseason special probably on all of these things. So it's really going to be interesting to watch down the stretch. Talk about somebody who deserves an MVP in our minds, in our hearts and minds. It's Pete Fairbanks of your Tampa Bay Rays. He's our MVP. Just for the incredible stats that he's been putting up. Brian, you had a couple. Let's just throw out our favorite Pete stats. What are your favorite Pete stats?
Yeah, so Petey obviously is. Excuse me. He's been injured a good amount this year, but he is disgusting. Has been since I met him. Before all the whatever 2020, whatever it was, and before he really was like a bigger name. He's very tall. He comes right at you straight over the top, and it's just hard fastball and hard slider. It's just nasty stuff. And he's been getting better and better. And so his stats for this season again was hurt unfortunately for a good amount of the year. But right now he's at 17 2/3. He's got 26 strikeouts to only 1 walk, which is bonkers. And good for a 1.53 ERA. And the StatCast numbers basically have him as the best pitcher, but mostly relief pitcher. Jacob deGrom's on this list because he's absolutely ridiculous. But StatCast has him as like the best pitcher in baseball. His opponent's weighted batting average is at 188, which trails only Emmanuel Clase and Jacob deGrom, who are at 170. But his expected opponent's weighted batting average is at 157, which is good for first and beating the people who are tied for second are Edwin Diaz and Emmanuel Clase, and they're at 206. So Pete is a good margin ahead of Edwin Diaz and Emmanuel Clase, which is obviously crazy. I mean, he's been lights out since he's been healthy, and hopefully we're gonna have him back on here soon. But yeah, Pete's doing it, man. He's killing it right now. And I know what was the other stat that you had for him?
So his first two appearances, he allowed 1 run and then he allowed 2 runs on July 22nd in his second appearance back from injury. Since then, he hasn't allowed a run. That's July 22nd was the last time Pete Fairbanks allowed somebody, to score. But I mean, yeah, this is just a fun, like, if you want to go have fun, just look at his baseball reference page. And it's just all these fun stats for like the month of August. I think he had 3 hits given up. He had 3 hits and no runs in the month of August. So, I love every time he puts the highlights on his Instagram story. I get a kick out of that because he is shoving right now. I would love to have seen what would happen if we get a full year of Pete Fairbanks pitching like this, though. That might be a Cy Young conversation.
If the numbers were like this, it definitely would be. Pete, seriously, I think Pete's just going to get better and better. He is actually a very good athlete. If you see him in person, you maybe not think that right away, but he really is. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He's just tall and like he's you gotta really know Pete. But Pete's a very good athlete, and I feel like he's really just figuring out how to pitch. Like he just his raw talent is so good, but since he's gotten to the Rays, it's just like little by little has just been like, oh shit, like here we go. This dude he's getting it, and it's just more and more. And he's very smart, as you know from talking to him on here. So he knows how to implement those things and how to work on those things, and it's paying off. And I love it because he's the best. And yeah, he's clearly one of the nastiest guys in baseball, and that makes me very happy.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'd be even more fun in the month of October watching the Rays make their little playoff run there because we're going to see we're going to see some Pete Fairbanks electricity come the month of October. I can't wait for that.
Talk about electric. Yes, Pete doesn't hold back. That's another reason I love it.
It would be even more electric though if he came out to Mr. Brightside and if he got over his whole thing against using that as his walkout song. You get burned by it once, I get it, but bring it back, Pete. The people want it. This person wants it.
Secret Crowd is doing it right now. At least
I know.
I think he's still using that.
He's got me hooked on them, by the way.
Great song.
I actually enjoy that band now because of him. So shout out Pete for getting me hooked on his new music. A couple more things for you guys. We have our Fudge-ing Awesome Moment of the Week.
Yeah, our Fudge-ing Awesome Moment of the Week is brought to you by our sponsor, the original Fudge Kitchen. You can find them at fudgekitchens.com. They're making sweet treats, saltwater taffy, fudge. They ship all over the country, so you can order them online. For our Jersey Shore people, man, and Philly people, I'm sorry that Labor Day weekend just happened, and that's kind of the end there. But if you still find yourself down there, they have locations in Stone Harbor, Wildwood, North Wildwood, Ocean City, and Cape May. So go in, check them out. That's the original Fudge Kitchen. And if not, you can order online at fudgekitchens.com. It's the best. Can't wait to get some when I get home.
So we have a cool one this week. So you may have heard of Roger Clemens, baseball legend Roger Clemens. He has a son named Cody who plays for the Detroit Tigers. He's mostly an infielder. He's also a relief pitcher when called upon. And our Fudging Awesome Moment of the Week this week has to do with his relief pitching because he struck out none other than the reigning AL MVP himself, Shohei Ohtani. So the Tigers were getting blown out 10-0 on Monday night's game, and they put Cody in to pitch, and I think he threw like a 68-mile-an-hour eephus pitch, struck Ohtani out on it. He was so giddy with excitement that he had the ball in his hand. He's like, can I toss this in and get it? Like, can I keep this ball? And he did. He tossed it in. It got it verified by Major League Baseball. And the coolest part, little added wrinkle to this story that I saw a couple hours ago was, I think he put it on his Instagram story, is that Shohei signed the ball for him. So Shohei autographed the ball. I'll have to pull up. I think he said, like, this pitch was nasty or you got nasty stuff or something he wrote on the ball. So it's a great time to be Kody Clemons. I love whenever these infielders come in and strike people out on eephuses and junk pitching because it's hilarious to watch. But to be the son of probably the best pitcher of all time and to do it, it's pretty good. So Brian, if you struck somebody out, you absolutely would want that ball back, right?
Oh yeah, if you that's amazing. Good on Otani for doing that too. That's cool. Listen, people think when position players come in to pitch that it's easy to hit off them, and I'm here to tell you that it's not because it's totally different than what you're used to, and there's way more pressure because everyone's like, if you strike out or something, you look like an idiot. So, uh, Ohtani, and if I was pitching to Ohtani, I would like softball throw it in there and then like run backwards away from the mound because that's like my biggest fear. We do that and then just because as a hitter, pitcher doesn't look that close. If you get in the box and he looks close, it's not going to be a good day. So you're pretty used to that distance. But like when I'm on the infield and there's a pitch and change or something, and I'm like standing on the mound, I look at home plate and I'm like, holy shit, this is close. Like we are not far away. So if I ever pitched, I'd be way too scared because I think someone's just going to hit a line drive right back at me.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's 60 feet 6 inches. Probably isn't. It seems far to me, but to actually be out there to be looking at it, it probably doesn't seem that far at all. I looked and Kody Clemons put it on his Instagram story. Ohtani signed the ball and he said, "What a nasty pitch!" with an exclamation mark.
That's awesome.
Good sense of humor for Shohei there. But yeah, shout out Kody Clemons. I would have thought Kody Clemons would have been a full-time pitcher. I didn't know much about him before this, but the fact that he's an infielder is surprising. I would have thought it'd been like Dad, but to each their own.
I think Clemens has another son who either played professionally or is still playing professionally. I believe both of them were hitters. I don't think either of them were pitchers.
Ooh, I think you're right. Yeah, Kobe Clemens. He's a catcher, third baseman, and first baseman.
Yeah, I don't think any of them pitched.
He's significantly older. Yeah, he was drafted in the 8th round in 2005. So he is definitely not playing anymore. Oh, he was the one that got to play. Remember the Sugarland Skeeters, like the independent league, and that was when Clemens got to play. Roger Clemens pitched, and his son was on the team. So that's how.
Okay.
Yeah, fun little fact there. And that was Clemens family trivia. So that was another segment I wanted to break out.
Love that.
Last but not least for you guys this week, we have our top 5. And so the day that we're taping this, September 6th, it's actually the 27th anniversary of Cal Ripken breaking Lou Gehrig's consecutive games played record, which we didn't even plan this because the guest we have this week is actually it's his son Ryan. So, but we did unintentionally plan that out pretty good there. But in honor of probably the most untouchable of all baseball records, we're gonna be doing the top 5 most impressive records in baseball history. We're going to be doing both single season and career. So I will start us off with my number 5. It's going to be Ichiro Suzuki's 262 hits in one season. People forget that's an absurd amount of hits for a season. And when he did that, he broke the record that had been set in 1920 by George Sisler, who had 257. So shout out Ichiro. I think that was his first year in the MLB was when he did that. It's insane. So that's my number 5. Number 4, I have Joe DiMaggio. I have 56 game hitting streak. We have like these things pop up throughout the year. Maybe we'll see a 20-game streak. Somebody will get lucky, maybe get to 30. But Joe DiMaggio to have 56 games in a row with a hit is insane. So I think that's another very impressive stat record. Number 3 is going to be Pete Rose. Most career hits, 4,256. This guy played, I think he also holds the most games played record too. He played forever. So that's the only way that people are going to be, the only way to break it is to play in a lot of games. You get a lot of hits, but I mean, nobody's going to touch Pete Rose's 4,256. So that is very impressive. Number 2, it's going to be Barry Bonds' 762 career home runs. People are getting close to it now. I get it. Albert Pujols is chasing down 700. Hank Aaron was only, I think, 7 or off. But for Barry Bonds to hit that many home runs, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Steroids or no steroids, he's still got to make contact and swing the bat. So that's Barry Bonds should also be in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose, definitely not. Number 1 on my most impressive baseball records, it's going to be the Iron Man himself. It's going to be Cal Ripken Jr.'s 2,632 consecutive games played, 16 seasons it took him to get that. I mean, this is a record that nobody could even sniff nowadays. The only person I can remember that got remotely close was Miguel Tejada. He had 1,152. And like, that was a big deal. It's like, oh, could Miguel Tejada break Cal Ripken, both Orioles, whatever? No, he didn't. So it's, 26-32 is something that will never be broken. That's a lot of consecutive games. So no days off. Shout out Cal Ripken Jr., the Iron Man. That is my top 5. What do you think?
I these are just ridiculous. All of them. I don't think any of them are going to be touched ever. So it's really just picking which one's more of a joke than the other one. But yeah, going down the list, Ichiro, this is the one that really stood out to me because I really knew about the other ones. I didn't realize Ichiro had 262 hits in a season. That is so many hits. It's amazing. I don't think nowadays just don't see that one being broken. And yeah, he broke the record that was set in 1920. So I don't think that's happening. That's playing in just probably every game or very very close to every game and having almost multiple hits in every single one of those games. Ridiculous. DiMaggio 56 game hitting streak. That's being a really good hitter, and that's also having some serious luck too. I just don't see that happening again. Bonds, the homers, insane. Should be in the Hall of Fame. I skipped Pete Rose though, but Pete Rose, yeah, that's playing forever, and having tons of hits forever too, and just never that skill never diminishing. So good for him. Ridiculous. Yeah, Bonds, unreal. Should be in the Hall of Fame. Those homers, what a joke. Arguably the scary, not arguably, probably the scariest hitter of all time. His numbers were. I mean, his on base percentage was like 613 one year. I'm pretty sure is the exact number, which is just an absolute joke. That is that he like it was intentionally walked like 60 times or something. I mean, it's just they intentionally walked him with the bases loaded. Are you kidding me? In a major league in a major league baseball game, they said just fucking put him on. Who cares? Just
Tony
take
La
the
Russa.
run.
Tony La Russa accidentally does that now. Yeah.
Dude, with the bases loaded, they were like, yeah, what you get it. I know we're giving up a run, but he's Barry Bonds, so just put him on. Okay, that is like the ultimate. I don't even know how that would feel. It feels good when you get intentionally walked when they're like, hey, we got a base open, just put him on there. Forget it. You're like, yeah, you don't want to fucking pitch today. That's right. But the base is loaded. You have to be like, just on cloud nine, like, holy shit, they were that scared of me that they just walked the guy in instead of pitching to me. Unreal.
Mitigate our losses on this one. Yeah, we'll just give up one.
Yeah. And then Cal Ripken, dude, 2,632 games played. 16 years. Like that is, it's never going to happen because now they're, guys, they just give a guy a day off or whatever. It's just never going to be touched. And I can't even imagine. I'd love to talk to him about that. Like just one-on-one, like how are you actually like, how's your body feeling going through? Cause dude, that's insane. Like, it's to never have something to keep you off the field in 16 years. Crazy. And I'm sure he had things that really were bothering him too. So the toughness that comes with that, man, crazy. Good for him. That's never going to be touched.
Yeah, I mean, like I was gonna say, like the grind of baseball, like the wear and tear, the nagging injuries that happen throughout the course of a season. So yeah, to do it for 16 straight and not take a day off and always be penciled in the lineup for that many years, it'll never be done. And it's one of the coolest things that doesn't get talked about enough in terms of baseball. I did want to clean up a couple things that we mentioned in there in case anybody wants to try to nitpick us. Ichiro had 262 hits in 2004, so that was his 4th season. It was his 1st season. He had 242, and that was when he won an MVP and Rookie of the Year. If Ichiro, if you want to count international hits, he is the all-time hits leader because combine his Japanese with American, he has 4,367. That's like over 100 more than Pete Rose's. So shout out Ichiro, the true hit king. Barry Bonds' highest on base was 609 one year. He had 120 intentional walks in 2004.
That's what that is crazy. Like, yeah, exactly. Laugh. That's what it is.
That's Barry Bonds is like baseball reference page. His and Tony Gwynn's. If you just want to go like nerd out on baseball stats, I highly recommend just going through and looking at the numbers. Because like Tony Gwynn had like more doubles than strikeouts in his career. So, you know,
Gwynn's another one.
yes.
That's the numbers are crazy. The strikeout stuff with Gwynn is laugh out loud funny, and people are that's where you get the people are like, well, be like Tony Gwynn,
Well, he did it.
There's one fucking Tony Gwynn. There's not a
Yep.
whole bunch of Tony Gwynns walking around, like so that's why Tony Gwynn was really the only one to do that. But yeah, Bonds, man. I mean, this is again off season. We can get into all sorts of podcasts on this, but like Bonds in his heyday, man, nobody was pitching to him, right? And his eye was so good. Everything, his swing was so efficient. His timing was so good. Like he got one pitch to hit, and when he did, he hit it over the fucking fence, and that was it. And then he would walk because they just wouldn't pitch to him. And it's so like as a player, I think fans appreciate it to an extent, but like as a player and as a hitter, the discipline and just everything that goes into that is just otherworldly. So Bonds, man, just an absolute freak show of a hitter.
People are getting close to that home run record, though. Like, it's not as untouchable as the other ones that we've talked about. There's not that big of a difference, like a gap drop off kind of situation between him and the other ones, but impressive nonetheless. I think anybody who's going to be doing these top fives would have to put the king Barry Bonds on there. And I'm sure Jared Carrabis likes that too, because maybe they've connected on Instagram since we've last talked to Jared.
Sorry, I know we gotta wrap this up, but I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, that he put out there that Bonds finally, the Instagram either like followed him back, like there was some sort of like right. Mingling there, yeah. And I forgot about that, but I remember when you said that. I think he put it up that Bonds followed him back or like liked his comment, like respond, like something happened there. So he finally got something out of it.
You know what? I think you're right. We'll have to confirm that for next week's pod. So stay tuned. It's like a serial podcast. It's like a mystery. It's like, what did Barry do to Jared Carrabis's Instagram? So stay tuned next week. But I think you're right. I think there was some kind of traction in that area.
It's so funny.
We have one last ad, though, before we talk a little bit about our interview for this week, Ryan Ripken. We wanted to give a shout out to friend of the podcast, Actions Over Words. They're an apparel brand with the mission of encouraging people to use their actions instead of their words. Founded in Cape May, New Jersey by Alec Levin, who's a great dude. Actions Over Word donates $5 of each sale to different charities around the world. So check them out at actionsoverwordsapparel.com and use the code N4L for 10% off your entire order of tees, hats, hoodies, a lot of great stuff. So definitely check our friends out over at Actions Over Words. We talked a little bit about our interview for this week. It's none other than Ryan Ripken, recently retired minor league baseball player for the Orioles, for the Nationals. Really cool conversation. We got into a lot of great baseball topics. How much fun was it getting to chop it up with our guy, Ryan Ripken? Yeah,
Ryan was awesome. What a great dude. Very insightful about all sorts of things. Obviously, very attached to the Baltimore area and the Orioles there and playing for him. But it was cool to talk about, get his perspective on what was going on with the Orioles now and how well they're playing and just kind of like the general overview of all that stuff. We got deep into it on a lot of stuff, and it just kept going. I did not realize the interview went as long as it did. It was fun, and just the Julio Rodriguez stuff there. I mean, it went all over the place, and we went deep on all sorts of things. So it was just a really good conversation, and he wants to be kind of in that sports media world, and I think he's great. I think he's well spoken, and I think he's very, as I said, insightful on a lot of things, and well on his way to be doing whatever it is that he wants to do with it. But I really enjoyed it, man. I hope we get him back on here in the future for sure.
Yeah, I mean, whatever he does, like full time in his post playing career, like he's gonna crush it. Because you're right, he is super well spoken. If he decides to go full time sports media, he's absolutely gonna demolish it. Because he's just like, he brings a unique perspective. especially with the Orioles stuff, having seen it up close, being in the minors, playing with guys like Adley Rutschman, like he's probably the preeminent source when it comes to like, hey, I know these guys are going to be good because I've seen it. So, yeah, definitely. This conversation will fly by. It's not one of those ones where it drags on. Like so many cool topics that we brought up. So, yeah, definitely want to have him back on. He's the kind of person that I would love to just having, recurring guest Ryan Ripken. Hopefully, we haven't talked to him about that, but hopefully.
Yep, him and Pete Fairbanks, the recurring guests on the
What a
pod.
panel that would be.
Yeah, that's a good panel. But yeah, with all that being said, let's send it over to the interview with Ryan Ripken. Joining us today on Breaking Bats is former 15th round pick of the Washington Nationals, Ryan Ripken. He's also the son of Baltimore Orioles great Cal Ripken Jr. and recently retired. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But Ryan, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's awesome to have you on here. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today? I know two of us are on the same time zone, but we got one I know it's nighttime, as you were saying before, but thanks for everyone making the time. And I'm glad we could finally get on and chat a little bit.
Yeah, man. I know we've tried to set this up a little bit ago, but you've been pretty busy in your retirement recently. So what hey, before we came on, we were kind of talking about this a little, but how's it been so far being done?
Well, so it's a whole different world. And I feel like when I tell people that, I feel like I come up with maybe the same response, a little bit different, but it really is. And I think for so long, you're used to a different one lifestyle. And with baseball, as we know, it's very time consuming. You're investing. It's really a year round thing. From you're away for 8 months and then you're training 3 to 4 months, and then it's just rinse, cycle, and repeat. And you feel like it's Groundhog Day, especially during the season. And now I have no idea what to do with my summers except all the things I used to get out of with, and I missed it, but I mean, things that I missed on like weddings or got out of, like wasn't there for family events or just even having a friend's weekend. I went on a friend's weekend trip in the summer for the first time since I was a senior in high school. So it was pretty wild, at least to think of it from that perspective. But overall, it's good. Just a little bit busier than I thought, quote unquote, retirement would look like.
Yeah, that sounds about right. There are a lot of things you can get out of by playing baseball and blaming things on baseball for sure. And most of the time it's maybe not most of the time, but a lot of the time those are good things. Some of the times you're kind of mad, like, man, I would be nice to go to that or do this or whatever. So that's cool. You're getting to do it at least right now.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, if I could play and be out there, I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? That's what you sign up for. But now that it's over, you do remember, and we talked about about just, you feel like you can miss out on some things, and not that that's bad. You make your choices, but now that you're back into the situations, it is great to get back some time with people. And all the things we do in life, it's the experiences you have with people. So I miss the component with the guys in the locker room, but I am really excited about being able to spend more time and make future connections with people in this next chapter.
That's a perfect segue to my next question. Was going to be, so far, what's the first thing that comes to your mind that you miss about playing?
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. It segues right into it. As much as I didn't like it, the two things I think I miss the most are the people and the grind of it. And as much as the grind would be sometimes miserable, and we know when things go well, you're on top of the world. You feel incredible because all you want to do is show up to the field and keep going to play. But when you're struggling, confidence wise or, internally, you don't feel great about yourself. But I still love that struggle of it. It was great to, go through that. And that's a part of with life. It's the ups and downs, and it made it more rewarding in that sense. And I love to compete. So that whole grinding aspect. And again, the people, can't emphasize enough as you go through this. I mean, we could probably talk about every stage of life that we've gone through, whether it was when you were a kid going to high school or kid growing up, going into high school, whoever you were friends with, or in the, for me in the minor leagues, guys that you got up with every morning during spring training, go off to the affiliates and you're with them. Like that's your family for the, 6 to 8 months. And for those to go through those experiences together and have those growing pains, I really valued that. And you just meet some great people. So I do miss that, but I mean, those people aren't gone, but the dynamics definitely change a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not stuck in a locker room with them for what, 8 hours every day at least, something like that. So there's definitely some fun times, some funny stories and things that go on while you're going through the minor league grind. But we'll get more into all that. But one more question for me. I'll let JA start grilling you over there. How tough is it raising a puppy?
Oh gosh, for anyone that's interested, puppy life, they can get away with so much because they are so adorable and cute. But man, got my hands full over here. Luckily, I got a great girlfriend so that was her gift. It was a surprise. And so she's, it's great having a partner for this process. But yeah, it is the potty training in an apartment is very challenging. It can really test your patience. So I don't know if they're saying to test you for having children, but I'll say I'm going to stick with the puppy until further notice. But he's great. His name's Ollie. I'm sure you guys, if you check out my social media, I may become an annoying dog dad in the future. So stay tuned for some nice Ollie content.
I don't think there's anybody that doesn't like dog content, but just
I
had to
think people
get
like
that
the
in.
dog. I think people like the dog content more than me sometimes. So that's the big hit. So if I'll give the people what they want if that's what they want.
It's not a bad business model, that's for sure. But all right, JA, go ahead. Let's get it started.
I had one thing going off of one of the questions Brian had about things that you miss. I mean, you played in the South Atlantic League with Delmarva, which has like the 17-hour bus rides. I feel like every single like road trip. Was that something that you missed?
No, I do not. What's funny actually, that league prepared me for it, actually conditioned me for anything with traveling. So in the off season, if we had to drive somewhere, if anything was under 6 hours or 7 hours, I'd be like, oh, that's an easy drive. Because that's what it felt like the average bus time, or that was the minimum time we had to travel in the South Atlantic League. I remember traveling to Rome, Georgia I don't think we left it after a night game, 13-hour trip. And we got in at like 1 o'clock the next day. And I remember my feet were up. I was on the ground. My feet were up to the right, maybe like in someone's face because it's a small space. And I know where I can see the laughter over there. I'm sure you have some stories as well. But so I don't miss that component, but there were a lot of fun times. You can make the most of it. Do I miss, traveling from Charleston, West Virginia in the middle of the night and the bus breaks down? It wasn't my favorite time in the moment, but it's a great memory. But it definitely taught me that anything under 7 hours in a car or a bus, I can manage, but please don't make it longer than that.
Yeah, we talk about that sometimes. I think we had Matt Adams on here. We're talking about some of these long bus rides and just like trying to cope with and make the best out of the situation. So I'm sure Brian, probably some flashbacks, a little PTSD from his long minor league bus rides.
Oh yeah, there's got to be. You got to have plenty of stories.
I never played in that. I was out in the Pioneer League. I was drafted by the Reds originally, and that was so I was in Billings, Montana. So it was all out that way. So yeah, we took about 13 hours down to Utah. Beautiful, beautiful sights, but same thing. Yeah, those were the worst where you had to, and I feel like it didn't happen that often, but where you had the overnight trip and then had to play. And you're just like, I remember we did that and we got back at like 11:30 in the morning. Our coach was just like, be here by 6:30. Like, I don't just be here for the game. I don't even care. But yeah, because JA, they don't, once you start moving up the ladder more, you get better buses, or you get more buses at least. So there's some more room for people. But the lower levels, they don't really care as much, or they don't really want to spend that money. So it's like 35 guys or whatever. It's just like piled on the one bus.
Can be a little cramped, to say the least. Especially if you get seeing it, it's the pros and cons of sitting in the back of the bus too. Sometimes maybe you can have a little bit more privacy, be away from, just kind of feel like you have your own space, but also then you're near the bathroom. People get up to go to the bathroom. Maybe your seat doesn't recline, or maybe something happens in the bathroom and it's a terrible smell. And then you're just wearing that for hours. So, it's got its pros and cons. I think with the South Atlantic League, just to tie it back, because obviously I enjoyed my time there and I enjoyed that league. And it was a lot of cool places you went. I think sometimes, and this is just about scheduling, it's different if, I understand you get to the majors and you can, the travel is, from what I've seen and understand, is exponentially better. But when you have to travel from, I remember we went to Charleston, South Carolina, finished the series, went to Charleston, West Virginia, which is about 7.5, 8 hours without a stop. And then went from Charleston, West Virginia back home, played maybe a series or two there, and then went back to South Carolina. And I just thought, like, crazy concept. Why don't we just play in Charleston, I think, and then let's go to Columbia and then go home. But that's just how it works. But again, like that's fun. Like, I can joke about that now. The South Atlantic League had a lot of great places, and again, guy about experiences. Most times you're probably, and we can relate to it, Brian, that we probably wouldn't go to these places, on our free time. And it's no knock to it, but there's life, things happen in life where you take different priorities. And so I'm grateful I went to places like Charleston, West Virginia, or I went to Greensboro. I'm trying to think other places in that league that I went to Lexington. Exactly. So it's, that was a long bus ride too. But again, I love being able to go to those cities and those towns because you get to see different cultures. And that really was a great takeaway for me being in the South Atlantic League.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I met my wife playing, so wouldn't have happened. That's where I live now, Pensacola, when I played AA there. So, yeah, I mean, I ended up in it's a pretty good spot, but without baseball, I probably would have never knew about it, or probably definitely would have never went there. But now it's my favorite place. It's my favorite place there is. I love it. I miss it terribly. But, and the other point you made, like, it's that, like, embrace the suck, you just, it's funny to look back on it now and how kind of ridiculous it is. But I wouldn't have changed it. Looking back on it now, it was great.
Oh yeah. No regrets. Life's a journey. Life's a journey. And even if you do regret it, you learn from it. So, but for me, I'm the same way. You have so many great experiences that, even if they were brutal at the time, they make for great stories to talk about, as you move forward in life.
I love that. So take it back to you for a second. I'm sure you get asked about this all the time, but like growing up in the spotlight, like what was that like? And like, did you feel any extra pressure to perform?
I'd love to just say, oh no pressure to perform at all. But the reality was it was there. Absolutely. And, as a kid, I really didn't understand the magnitude of what my dad had accomplished, and even like how people viewed my family. And because I just never, as a kid, you're also still learning. And when my dad was retiring, I was 8 years old, and when everyone was making, people were sad or excited or wanted to go and see him play, I didn't get it. I shouldn't say I didn't get it, but I really just thought of that as my dad's job. So I didn't look at it any other way. And then as I got older, I realized, especially growing up in Baltimore, you understand then the magnitude of the situation. And And got into high school, pressure started to escalate. And then there's feeling a lot more of the comparisons. And as a teenager, and you already have other things kind of going on in your life, where was probably moody, and I know I was moody and had weird sleeping habits, and things could seem to trigger me very, very quickly. So I couldn't grasp the concept of why there was so many expectations. And then for me, I wanted to prove to people that I was a quote unquote, I was a Ripken, that I could live up to the expectation and family name. And that was exhausting. And no matter what, through the whole time, I've always wanted to be Ryan, and I love what my family did. Kudos to them, hats off, give them a high five. But I want people to know me, and I want to, if you like me or you don't like me, or you think I'm a good player or not, view that as me, and don't try to compare the names. But when I got into pro ball, I still had struggles with that too. And honestly, until I got released with the Nationals and I had to reset, and I had a lot of injuries to start my career, was I finally able to get into a different mindset and kind of let things go, stay in the moment, and really put things aside. And I've definitely come to peace with all that stuff. And I just want to point this out, I never was trying to be like anyone in my family in that regard. I know I wanted to follow the footsteps to play because I love the sport, but I didn't do it because I wanted to be to be better or be exactly like my dad. I wanted to make my own path and see where that took me. And this is where it took me. This is where it ended. It's not the way I wanted it to finish, but I'm proud of the journey, and I'm proud of the process, because everyone has a different story, and now I'm excited to continue what that chapter is, and hopefully people can see the sides of me as a player, but I hope more so that they can remember me more as the person.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of stuff that you've done post retirement. You've talked a lot about wanting to blaze your own trail. Not forget where you came from, but also still kind of let people know that, hey, I'm more than just the son of Cal Ripken. I'm Ryan, and I have my own stuff going on. So that's awesome. Did you have did you become numb to people, like strangers coming up to you asking about your family? Did you have a canned answer from hey, Ryan, what's dad like? Did you have that down pat?
Well, you kind of learn, that was the other thing of growing up. I got exposed to being careful of what I say and what I do, because people will take more notice. And I remember even at a really young age, and that was something when you first heard it, my parents telling me, hey, got to be careful what you do. People are watching, and you oh, okay, whatever. But that moment kind of, or that first initial conversation stuck with me. And so as I got into pro ball, especially, that's where it's extremely magnified. And after games, you're talking with people, and I felt, not that I always had a canned response, but I knew what to dive into and what not to, and understand that there's paths that I just can't. It's a rabbit hole. There's no reason for me to go down. So I definitely got more comfortable with answering, and I probably gave similar answers at times that people ask me. I think one of the things and that always would get me was your dad's awesome. What's it like having him as your dad? And I just would go, well, I have a question. Do you is your father in the picture for you? And oh yeah, I I go, well, what do you think of your dad then? Do you love him? And they go, oh yeah, I love my dad. He's the best. I go, well, that's how I view him. That's my dad. That's how I view him. He's just dad. So I think that was probably one of the most trademarked one. It was which I enjoyed. Or if it was a how's dad, I honestly would be yeah, well, I have no idea. Might give him a call after and see how his day's been. So I try to keep it light. That's the biggest thing, keeping all the conversations light.
That's awesome. That cracks me up because my dad, didn't play anything like that. He's great, but Jeff Manto played in the big leagues for 10 years. I don't know if you ever crossed paths with him. He was
He
the
was,
hitting coordinator, I believe, for
yeah,
the Orioles at one
yeah,
point, right?
yeah. I just would call him Mick. I
Yeah.
loved him. He was one of my favorites to be around.
Yeah. So he's great. He's from Philly.
Mm-hmm.
So I know him pretty well. His son was a pretty good player. He's still playing. I forget where he was at Villanova University. I
Yep.
forget where he is now. But we would hit. I hit at the same place, and we would hit sometimes, and he would just say to me, I'm pretty sure his son's Jeff too. He'd be like, he just doesn't want to listen to me. I tell him whatever. Yeah, he was a like big league hitting coach too for the White Sox for a while. Like, it obviously knows his stuff, and he's like, yeah, he just won't listen to me. And Jeff, the son, was in like high school at the time. I'm like, yeah, no shit, because to him, you're just your dad. You're not like, to me, you're this guy who played in the major leagues for 10 years. To your son, you're just your dad. He doesn't give a shit that, like, you're just dad, like Ryan is saying here. So it's just that dynamic cracks me up because, yeah, most people definitely don't like comprehend that they're, at the end of the day, he's just your dad. It's not anything. It's nothing about what player he was or what anything else he did. It's you and him, father and son. That's it. And I think that's great.
So Justin, I think a story that with Mick and Brian, maybe you know this, is that he had a streak of I think it was pinch hit home runs. I'm trying to look it up right now. Do you know about this, Brian?
No,
So
I
when he
don't.
was maybe we could have to talk about it, or he was trying to become, so reading an article right now, he's trying to become the first player in Major League history to homer in 5 consecutive at bats. And I think it was him pinch hitting and coming off the bench.
That's awesome.
But so it's funny because he actually overlapped then, with my dad. And but to your point, that's what it is. It's you're not viewed as anything more. Your dad first. And so I got annoyed with my dad. Him and I would be working on stuff, and we would go back and forth, have a banter, maybe get really ticked off with each other, and then kind of cool down. Maybe go, okay, we need to go eat. Okay, let's go eat. And then we reset. So that perspective definitely I can relate to on a lot of levels, and just reminds you that that's just like a lot of people. That's a typical father son dynamic when you're trying to when it's involving coaching.
Did you also play with Rafael Palmeiro's son in the minors?
Yep, with Preston. Yep, I did.
Did you guys kind of share that same experience, or maybe talk about maybe what it was like to grow up in the spotlight? Because I'm sure he was probably feeling the same things you did. I mean, his dad's a legend as well.
So it's interesting. We didn't like fully dive into it all the time, but Preston's such a good dude, and he very down to earth, very very open, very welcoming. And I think for me, what I was impressed with Preston is, again, how he handles his situations. And like you said, there was growing up, a lot of people in the baseball world knows the Palmeiro name, and his dad obviously had a great career. And also for him, then with some of the allegations that then came out of talking about the steroid era, then that even put more pressure on the Palmeiro family. And so that, even to me, just watching how Preston handled himself, and to me, we didn't even need to talk about it, any of that stuff. Just it spoke volumes to me to see how he went about his work every day, and he worked extremely hard. He was caring to the people around him, and he was, and I got to check. I haven't checked in with him, but he's a good player, and I think that sometimes he may never get credit, and he probably felt those same expectations. But that's the thing, is sometimes you don't even have to have the conversation to know and feel what someone else went through. I could just feel that we had similarities.
I like that. So I was going back and I was looking. You mentioned expectations. Was there always, like, I don't want to say there's like an expectation, but was baseball always going to be it for you? Because I saw you're pretty good at basketball as well.
I loved basketball, and I if I was 6'7" or 6'8", I would have not played baseball. And I was hoping deep down, I'm like, please grow 2 or 3 more inches. And I remember some teams or colleges they were very interested. They wanted me to then just quit playing baseball because I needed to work on footwork and a lot of things can become sports specific. And for me, I needed to work on being quicker if I was going to be staying at the time. I was like 6'3", 6'4". Ended up, growing posture, stand up straight. I'm about 6'5". But that's nowadays, especially in the last 10 years, that's you're guarding guards and maybe you're an undersized small forward. So basketball to me is also that. Honestly, I'm actually, now that I'm done playing, I'm going to get way more involved. And I still did play in the off seasons. That was, even though I probably wasn't supposed to, I love to go and play. It was kind of like a safe space for me, in the sense where you just would go out there. I didn't feel like I had anything to worry about. All I want to do is win. And you mess up, you don't have really time to feel bad. Baseball, you get to sit on it. Oh, I struck out. Great. I'm going to go in the field. Oh, I struck out again. Oh, I broke my bat. I had a game in high A where I went 0 for 4, 0 for 5, 4 Ks, golden sombrero. I felt great. And then I just sat on it. Every inning, it kept building. The great thing with basketball is you miss a shot, you make maybe a bad play. You can't feel sorry. You got to get back on defense. You got to try to make a play. It keeps going. So I love that component. And you're reminding me that I need to get on scheduling my routine weekly pickup games.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir right now. I was a basketball player too, and I miss it so much, and I miss playing pickup. I played pickup with the same group of guys who are all a few years older than me. They at an LA Fitness that I went to forever. I came in one day and played with them. They're like, hey, I was a senior in high school. They're like, hey, you're gonna be on our men's league team. They were like probably like 24, 25 at the time. I'm like, all right, sure. And ever since then, dude, for like the next 7 years, Saturday, Sunday mornings, every week, like religiously, we played. It was my favorite. I miss everyone's, they're all a little bit older now, all have families, like just kind of fell apart slowly, but those were the best times. And the last time I played, I'll never forget it. I saw kid, this isn't funny. Kid I was covering beat me, and I hadn't made it to the major leagues yet, but I think I'd been to AAA, so I was kind of like cooling it down anyway. And these guys all knew. That's why I played with them too, because they would never do anything to ever, put me in danger. But I kind of just let him go, take the layup, and I turned around and started like jogging back the other way already, and I just heard him yell. And I turned back, and his foot was facing the wrong way. So I don't know, and I just kept running and just ran out of the gym, and I was like, "That's it. That's it. I'm done." Last pickup basketball game I ever. Well, since then I've played, and yeah, man, that was the end of it for me. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. But I do miss. It's such a good workout too. Like it is just such a good workout. I miss it so much.
That's the thing is, Justin, I don't know how you feel about this, but do you like to just go? I mean, I'm not the person that can go outside or go on a treadmill and just run. Do you like to go out and run distance or?
Yeah,
you do.
I have the runner's body thing where it's like I'd rather go run a couple miles than do anything like other.
So yeah. I wish that I had that, and I have props to you. That is not me. I cannot tell myself I'm going to go run outside. If I do anything, I do sprints. But that was the great thing about basketball, and for so many other guys, and I know there's a ton of more baseball guys that feel the same way, where it's like, this will be great cardio, great conditioning. And that's how I looked at it. And I'm a big competitor, and there's people have talked about growing up. My dad had some very competitive basketball games at the house during his career. And so I definitely, that was ingrained in me. So when I would play, and I would try to be careful, but I wanted to get after it and compete, because the more I competed and maybe the intensity level rose, the better the workout was for me, and I'd be exhausted. And but there's nothing like it. I was in the best shape of my life going into when I finished in high school. Ryan, you could probably attest to it, is when when basketball season ends and you're on into baseball. To me, that was the best shape I was ever in, and I could never replicate that.
Never.
But it's fun. So when the time comes though, and you're done playing, you should hop back in. But please, right now, you don't. You let me get
I
hurt
don't.
for you.
I don't. Yeah, the extent of I'll warm up shooting some baskets before I work out in the off season. Now, just by myself, just shooting. That's because I do miss it. But yeah, the one thing I miss that you just said after high school games, just being so exhausted and just I can't even explain the type of tired. I miss that. You don't get that type of tired from baseball. And yeah, two, you need to get in some sort of league and get back on the court for sure, because you got to do it for me. I'll
I
live
will.
vicariously through you.
I will for sure do that. Forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, that was the thing. Is in I hurt my oblique in 2019, and then I just got to the point where, because I got off to a good start in high A, and then when I came back, I struggled for the next month and a half, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just not gonna really work out much. I'm just gonna do some basic things, but so I thought maybe I kind of aggravated something with a different exercise, but to meet a requirement, because they'd be like, hey, you need to try to go to the gym. I'd be like, oh, okay. I'd go to the gym bus, hop on, get there, and then I just go, oh, they have a basketball court. Oh, great. Yeah. I'm gonna go do a dynamic warm up and just go get some shots up. I remember like in Binghamton, New York, playing the Mets, or the Rumble Ponies. I remember just like, oh, okay, wait. And I think I went there both times to make sure I could just go shoot hoops for 30 minutes. And it satisfied my working out for the road trip.
I like that. Every time I think I'm gonna go play basketball, I think of that video of Tom Segura breaking every bone in his body, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I'll let you guys do the hoop stuff. And
You can
I
run
will,
for us. You
yeah,
can go run for miles.
Yep.
I'll live through you on that, and we'll live the basketball life for you.
I think that's probably a better plan of attack, to be honest. Yeah.
Good
Um,
deal.
So the JUCO baseball grind is something that we've talked about on this show before. We had Matt Strom on, who's talked all about like his conditioning tests and just the legend that is JUCO baseball. I saw that you were also a JUCO guy at Indian River. Could you
Yep.
talk about your JUCO experience and what that was like back then?
So the backstory of that is left South Carolina. There was turnover with Ray Tanner left, and Holbrook took over, and then just with systems and fits, and wasn't gonna have the opportunity to play, and that was all right. So I wanted to reset, and I think what people forget, when sometimes I thought that JUCO could be looked at. I don't want to say it was looked at more negatively when you say you went to a junior college, which, first off, for school wise, I had one of the hardest classes I ever took in junior college. It was an American history course, and it was probably one of the best classes I've ever taken, but man, it was a lot of work. So side note for people that maybe have a certain perception of junior college, it is what you make it. And there's some great professors. Baseball side, there is some great competition. And I went down and played Indian River. So we played in Florida, and Miami-Dade was one of the teams that was in our conference, and I think it was Broward, Brevard, so playing some of the other counties. And it is a grind. You're not getting the luxuries of being at a university. Going from South Carolina's baseball setup to Indian River was pretty drastic, but the style was less. Sometimes you had to do more to maybe help the field set up certain conditioning tests, but the competition of who you face, there's a lot of guys that end up facing there that were ML or we're professionally talented players. And I think that was the cool part. And even junior college, you want to win, but it's a little bit of a different dynamic than when you go to a 4-year school, because let's face it, at bigger schools, it's still the coaches' jobs are to win. And sometimes the development can come, but most cases you need to win now. And so junior college, that was a refreshing thing. It was still trying to learn your development and you wanted to win. I loved it. I really do. So if anyone was looking to, they wanted to play, because that's the biggest thing with your development, go somewhere where you can play, whether that's going to a 4-year school, a junior college. You need to go out there, and that's the only way you're going to get better. And so for me, spending that year there, it was great. It was definitely different, but that is an experience for being I'm glad I guess I can consider myself a JUCO bandit, because it was a really cool thing to be a part of.
I love that. Yeah, we've talked all about the experience of JUCO baseball in here, and you're right, it is a grind, especially going from like South Carolina to Indian River. Was that a strategic move on your part to go there? Because I was looking at like the quality major league player that has come out of like Indian River. Was that like a strategic move on your part where you're like, you know what, it's a junior college, I'm gonna get to play, and also major league teams aren't afraid to come look around at our guys.
Yeah, so that definitely was a good selling point. Actually, the two teams that I was, or two junior colleges I was looking at, was Chipola over in the Panhandle and Indian River. Those were really came down to, and both of them had a track record of sending guys or getting drafted and moving forward. So Indian River, it worked because then actually one of my other my roommate at South Carolina as well, his name is George Iskandarian, went on went to Miami and won, I think, the ACC batting title, 2 years later. Great player. And since then he's done playing, but we both went to Indian River together. So having someone there with you going through the process was a main reason. But definitely there's a wall at Indian River, and it shows everyone that's been drafted there. And then also guys that have debuted. And to look at that list is really cool, because in Indian River, it's in Fort Pierce, Florida, or just around Jupiter, or I'm sorry, not Jupiter, Port St. Lucie. And people might not know much about it. And so if we're looking at the junior colleges and you're looking and going to the field and you see those names, it's encouraging, and you can definitely see, and even some of my teammates, it gave you confidence that you can do this. So that was cool. And look, everyone has to go and do their own path, but for me, I feel even proud now to be able to add myself to that list of being another player that was able to get drafted out of Indian River.
I love that. And it worked out, obviously, because like you said, the Nationals took you. So was that kind of like a win-win in your mind? Because like, was staying close to home something that you valued, and also like it was like one of the best organizations at the time?
Yeah, I mean, the Nationals were always a team that I talked to, throughout high school as well, and so it was awesome for that experience. But I be honest, I'm sure Brian can agree with this. You'll go anywhere that someone wants you. They draft you. If they told me to go out west, if the Mariners took me, I'd be ecstatic. But it was very cool to have that experience, because then a lot of their affiliates are somewhat nearby. The Nationals were a little bit further away, but going to, they have some teams in New York. At the time, they had one in Hagerstown, Potomac area. So it was really great to then be able to have family and friends come by and see you. Because as we know, in the season, it can get lonely. It can be a grind. And when you can see some familiar faces come by and see you and help maybe even give you a breather, it's so refreshing. So it definitely helped with my mindset. And I wish that I wasn't hurt so much, so I wouldn't have to be down in Florida, but I was grateful to be able to play with the Nats.
I love that. And especially at that time when you were coming up with them, like that was when like their top prospects were getting drafted. They were signing in the big leagues, the Robleses, the Tyler Watsons, who signed this glove for me. So shout out Hagerstown. I was
Hey,
texting with
Tyler.
them about you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny that you bring those guys up, and I didn't mean to cut you off,
Yeah.
but it is funny because I played with Robles, I played with Soto, and it's funny. Soto, maybe we talk about this later, but there's only a couple guys where you have that wow moment, and I had the wow moment before he came, like, and everyone did. This wasn't, if you were around him you knew. So I'm like, oh, he is different. He is special. And Robles was even the higher prospect at the time, and they were both top prospects. This is splitting hairs. But I'm like, wow, Soto's the real deal. And I've only felt that around two people. And the second one's we're gonna find out here soon in the next couple of years if that second player is gonna pop. But I was right on Soto. But it was so cool coming up with those guys. You're right. The Nationals organization was so good, so talented, and it was really great to see what they were doing. And I'm actually super happy that they finally got it, because being in the organization, I will say things were very tense when there was so many playoff disappointments and early exits and not winning the series to even get to the pennant or the championship series. So I'm really glad that they got there, and they sold off a lot of players also at the end of the day. But the goal, if you win a World Series, I think it's safe to say they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually my question. It was about Juan Soto, because you saw him when he was like a 17, 18-year-old kid. And then, yeah, like you answered my question, because it's like, did you just know, like, as soon as you saw him take BP or whatever out there in the field, like, that he was going to be like the guy?
Well, so the first time I ever met him, it was an instructional league, and it was his first time coming to the US, I believe. And this, I guess, was my first season, like it might have been 14, maybe 15. I could be wrong, but anyway, I talked with one of the coaches, and they had just some of the players that came over from the Dominican. We're doing some outfield drills, and our coach just walks by and goes, "Yep, that's the best hitter in the organization." And I'm just like, "Oh, like, come on, man! Like, he hasn't even played in America. He's first time coming here." And then even in BP or him walking around, I wouldn't think seeing him walk around being like, And then in BP, sometimes it wasn't, obviously he can put on a show then, but at that time he wasn't trying to put on a show or do anything. I think it was then when he got into game situations and you saw the competitiveness come out of him, and you're like, whoa, you're taking it to a different level, and you are so consistent. Your two-strike approach, your ability, your the ball ability, your eye, and then the rate that he did it, that was something that just, and then it kind of clicked. So if I didn't fully believe it at 17, as far as the first time I met him, the second time when I saw him a little bit more closely, he had that wow moment. I'm like, you're 18 and you're doing what you're doing. I can only imagine what's going to happen. And obviously, I think he debuted at 19, if I'm correct. He went from, I even played against him in that year in low A to start. And then he had arguably one of the greatest minor league stretches ever, where he hit crossed low A, high A, double, went 3 levels, hit a bunch of home runs, and then debuted in the big leagues and had a great rookie year. So kudos to him, and he's worth the money whenever he gets it.
Yeah, I think there's very few guys that you come across that you're like, all right, yep, that's it. Like, that's different right there for sure. And
yeah, who did you have?
Played,
You've definitely had some guys.
It's funny looking back on it now, because you play against so many guys that end up making it or being pretty good at least. And there's definitely guys I thought who were going to be really good, who were, okay or whatever. The one that stands out to me the most is Ronald Acuna. When he came to Double A that year, I think he went high A, Double A, Triple A that year.
Mm-hmm.
And when I played him in Double A, I had no idea who he was, and started hitting. I'm like, who the hell is this kid? Because and I'll never forget, that was the first game or whatever, and then one of the last games, Tyler Mahle, who's turned into a pretty good big league pitcher, was pitching for us, and we were playing at Mississippi, which was a graveyard at the time. And Acuna hit a ball in the first inning that I thought was like a pop up to shallow left field, and it went out by about 100 feet. And I was like, holy shit, what was that? And ever since then, I'm like, this dude is That guy's special. They had Austin Riley was on that team too. Who was it was I thought he was pretty. He owned. We talked about him on here before. Jay already knows he owned us like that series. I think he went like 15 for 16 with hits from right field line to left field line. Like it was just a show. Like every single time, like this dude's gonna hit. Doesn't matter. But yeah, it's funny looking back on some of the guys. Like when I Tatis was another one when I played with him in the Dominican, and I'm like, all right, this guy's got some different stuff going on too. But man, those the really special ones, I feel like it's just you see it and you're like, yeah, that's you see it up close as a player, and you're like, all right, yep, that's a little different than most of us.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is there's so many talented players that come through professional baseball, and I try to tell people, and as you know, sometimes the most talented players don't make it because they can't figure it out, and it's not because that they don't have that given talent, because they can do things that most people can't, but they couldn't do it consistently enough. And then you have guys where, you know, I still like to look at the example. That's what the great thing about the sport is, you can really be any size. You know, you can be small, tall, um, you know, whatever it is, you can go out there. You have to go out and be consistent. And you can look at, so I know some actual YouTube, like just some absolute specimens. They go, I don't know how you are able to physically, your skills are just dwarf mine, but I can't, like, you know, you can't make the adjustments to keep your career moving. I remember facing a guy even down in Florida in the Gulf Coast League that threw 101 for the Cardinals. And I don't think he ever panned out, but he was till this day was one of the hardest at bats ever faced, because his stuff was so good and he threw so hard, but couldn't locate it. I remember he had one maybe over my head or behind me, and people, that's kind of the joke in the Gulf Coast League too. It's like, who knows where it's going, but he would throw that and then maybe throw a nasty slider and then paint 101 on the corner. And I go, well, wow, like why aren't you higher up? But then again, it's consistency that makes the players who they are. The other one, Luis Robert, was a funny one I just wanted to bring up, where first time I met him, I think he came over, we were playing him in low A, and I think he broke like 4 bats really quickly. And I'm like, he just it seems like he has a slow bat. Flash forward the next year, it was like, you know, the end of the year. And as we know, people have bad series, but his numbers even that year I think he just came over, wasn't having as much success. We opened up with them in 2019 in Frederick, and I think he went deep twice the first night. He had like 5 homers in 3 games against us. And then we faced him again like a month later, and it's like, oh man, his pace slowed. He's only has like 14 home runs or whatever it was. And we finally had him down. I think he had a golden sombrero. He's 0 for 4 on the day. And then his 5th at bat, he went dead center almost, and Winston-Salem felt like he was gonna hit the scoreboard up above. And I go, well, there it is again. And then at that, like those moments, I'm like, wow, that guy, first off, physically, you know, talented, and he's the real deal. And obviously when he's healthy for the White Sox, he is, you know, one of the best players.
To go into the Orioles system last year and to play with Adley Rutschman for a couple months there, like, was that kind of the same vein where it's like up close, this guy, he's just built different?
So, you know, it's funny. He's not the second player that I was mentioning with Soto that I had the wow moment, but it's not. I was telling people, so I went on a pregame show here in Baltimore. Adley, I think because he was like he's the number 1 overall pick. Everyone knew everything about him. So the expectation for him already was, you're really good. And when I watched him, I didn't have that thing of that moment of being like, oh my, blown away. But as we know in baseball, as you get to the major leagues, some guys can get to the majors off of being really good at one thing, or maybe you're good at 2 things, you know, and you work on that, you try to perfect that and be so consistent that that's what gets you to the majors. Adley, the thing that makes him so special is that he's really good at 6 or 7 things. So if you think about it from defensively, he can block, he can frame, he can control the run game, he can call good game pitching, and the pitching staff correlation since he's been in Baltimore is a testament to it. But then offensively, he has a great eye. He's the ability to bat to ball, but it's nothing where I go like, wow, it's unbelievable. And he has the talent. That's not what I'm trying to say, but you see what I mean? He came in kind of as that, but what makes him stand out at that position is just the multiple things that he's good at, where some people struggle to be good at 1 or 2. The one where I had the wow moment is Gunnar Henderson. And I've only had it with 2 people, and it's with Soto and Gunnar. And that's going to be interesting to see what happens, because Gunnar's 21 years old. But that was the thing, is he was doing things at 19, and this was I didn't even play with him. I just spent time with him in spring training, and just raw skill was flat out impressive. And what he was able to do, and then watching him the last 2 years, and I was right about Soto, and I could feel it, and I had that same feeling. So I'm going to go with my gut on that Gunnar is going to turn out as a extremely special player for the Orioles.
The Orioles just seem like they're so solidly built up the middle now. Obviously, with Adley and Gunnar, who's playing all over the infield now, which is great. He's hitting homers. The hair's flying out of the back of the helmet. Like, are you just watching what the Orioles are doing right now and how much fun they're having? And you're like, this is a team that's solidly built for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what makes it so what makes me happier for them is the guys there, and no, there's no secret how bad the Orioles had been the last few years, and it was going to be expected, and even was expected this year. This is what was so awesome for them, is that expectations, there were none this year. It was still trying to figure out which pieces were going to be considered foundational moving forward, because you have some of these prospects coming up and you hope they work out, but the reality is they might not. So who on the big league team do you think can be a long-term piece? And Cedric Mullins played his way into that last year, and Cedric played with him. And in 2019, he got sent from the big leagues all the way from AAA to AA. And you thought maybe he was going to be on the way out. COVID hit. He regains his ground, and then he becomes what Cedric is now. So that's an example of that. But now, when the Orioles gained confidence and Adley came up in the pitching staff, I think that's what's been so incredible. But winning's contagious. And then once you can believe you can do it, and I think that's what's making this better, is that they forced their way into the situation. And now that they forced this unprecedented season, the confidence that they're only going to get better is even going to make them play better. So if you believe in something and then it happens, like I really look at the last X amount of years, let's just think about teams that got on extreme hot streaks that maybe weren't the best team that made something happen. I remember like the Colorado Rockies, when they went on that insane run of winning, I don't know, it was like 20 of 22 games or something like that to close the season and make the playoffs. And then they steamrolled to the World Series, and then they fell to the Red Sox. But were they the best team at the time? No, but they found a way to get hot and make it. That's kind of what the Orioles did. Not in that sense, but the Orioles just played so well that it got to a certain point in the season. And then once you're in it, all you got to do is get to August and be in the race, because if you have hope, anything can happen. And now the Orioles, the series, there's 10 games with the Blue Jays, I believe. To me, that's those series against the Blue Jays are going to decide who's going to be who's going to get that spot between them. So Orioles are set up for the future. They got some tremendous young talent, and I'm excited, and I'm so just overjoyed that the guys that I've spent time with get to experience something after such tough years over the last 3 or 4 years.
Tough's been an understatement. Yeah, I mean, they were borderline unwatchable for half a decade, and then to have them this year come back and be so relevant again, it's been so great for the city and the fans, and it's all people are talking about.
That's you're from here. Sorry, just to close it, but
yeah.
you're being down in Annapolis. I mean, you're around it. It's the energy, right? The energy of people talking about the Orioles is exciting, and that's something that's been missing from, from this area. And usually in Baltimore, everyone's about the Ravens, and they still are. I'm all about the Ravens. But the excitement that people are having for the Orioles, it's reminding you that Baltimore still is a baseball town deep down, and there's so many people that enjoy the Orioles' success. Sorry, go ahead now.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like a lot of it too is like it's so like, usually when the Orioles and Nationals they were good at the same time, and now the Nationals are bad again, and now the Orioles are good again. So it's like it really just the whole area I feel like is more so getting on the Orioles bandwagon. But I had a question about the Orioles regimes. You saw the Dan Duquette era, you saw the Mike Elias era. I'm a long since Dan Duquette defender. I don't really know of a lot of people that are, but I am. But what have you seen organizationally that's been different from Dan to Mike?
So it's interesting. Well, obviously, Dan came at a time, and for whatever, I think actually, let's see how I'll answer this in stages. Each time that you come in as a front office, you're going to inherit some pieces, then you have to figure out how to try to take care of it. So when Dan Duquette came in, Andy McPhail, I believe, was one of the men that was there before. So he brought in the likes of Adam Jones, Chris Davis. I think maybe I remember it was Chris Tillman, Manny Machado, JJ Hardy. Actually, I forget if JJ Hardy. I'm getting off topic with that. But anyway, the Machados, the Adam Jones, and Chris Davis. Let's just do those three. Those three players for the stretch for the Orioles, where they were having a lot of success, those were three significant components to the team. And that was brought in by McPhail. Then Dan was able to, with Buck Showalter, you're able to put some things together. And I the biggest difference between Elias and Duquette is Elias's background with scouting and the analytics, and that's what really changed. But Duquette did his style, and the team had success. So then here comes Elias after the Orioles had that really bad year, and then everyone cleans house and it's starting anew. And what I respect with Elias is that he wanted to come in and do it his way. He wanted to commit to the rebuild, and they wanted to try to implement systems, and they were very analytically driven, and they wanted to try to create their formulas that would help them get production and success and development in players. I think the biggest one, as we're seeing at the big league level, has been the success of the pitching analytics. I think pitching is always ahead of hitting, but if you look at the Orioles staff right now, a lot of them are more inexperienced at the big league level. I mean, you have some of the guys that have a lot, Jordan Lyles obviously is a guy that has service time, but if you look at them from a standpoint, like Felix Bautista right now, this is his rookie season. He was in high A to start the year in 2020, and he's arguably a top 5 closer in the bigs right now. He's unhittable. And so to see whatever they're teaching and developing, I think that's what's been extremely interesting to me with Elias, is the development of on the pitching side, and the hitting side's getting better, but as we know, that's coming and going. But their pitching, they've just been so on top of it, and the way that they're getting players off waiver claims, like or signing people. Perez and the pen has been tremendous. Mateo was a waiver claim, and second half of the season, he's been one of the best shortstops. So whatever they're seeing, or what Elias is seeing, and Sig, the assistant GM, whatever they're seeing to help then get them on to take the risk and maybe get something out of them is really working. Austin Voth's another case. Had a high ERA with the Nationals. You bring him over, and until I know last start, he didn't have a great outing, but he's been so successful. And I think that to me has been really impressive, is that they're trusting what they're doing, and now they're reaping the benefits of their system.
One last thing, then maybe if Brian has something too there, but like, I don't know. It's hard for me as a fan, because like I said, I love the Orioles so much, like what Dan did. They had a top 10 payroll. They were sexy. They were, hey, trade deadline, let's go get some people. And, they obviously paid the price for that in terms of prospects, and, the cupboard was pretty bare. But there's a lot of guys there that are good now that were Dan guys. But do you think that there's something to, like, the dumb fan, like me, perspective of, like, the analytics isn't really that sexy. It's not, it's under slot draft picks. It's, trading Trey Mancini for a guy who had Tommy John surgery. I don't know. There's just something about like the way they're doing it. It works. Don't get me wrong. But there's also a part that misses. Dang, it was fun to hit 275 home runs a year and re-sign Chris Davis. Like that's where I'm at with the Orioles. I love them still, but it's hard.
Yeah, I will say so. And that's the thing is everyone has a certain feel of what brought them or what resonated to them with the Orioles. And that's the thing is Duquette and that team that they constructed was exciting for fans, and yeah, Chris Davis at that time, before the contract was one of the most exciting players, especially for the Orioles to watch. And you're right. They had a swagger to him. And for me, I like to not even get so analytical, but I am open more to understanding, and I do understand the role that it plays. I think we all do. This is going to be the interesting part now. And Elias has come out and said that he would like to spend more. And I do believe they're going to start doing that now that they believe the window. But again, it's how much you're going to be willing to open up the checkbook to bring certain names in. And I also too, if they're guys that you really believe, you got to give them chances to come up and play. Now the Gunnar Hendersons, the Adley Rutschmans, the top prospects, they're going to have, they're forcing their way in, and you expect them to be, cornerstones for you. So I think this next year or two is going to be very telling as of how much Elias is saying about them bringing on guys, because the only thing I'll close with, to be successful again, and if you're going to be in a smaller market, you have to be willing to have a very strong system. Tampa Bay is, to me, the blueprint of like one of the best organizations. If you are going to decide you're not going to spend money, do it. Do what the Tampa Bay Rays are doing, but obviously people can't emulate that as well because everyone would do it. But Tampa Bay has done it. And look at this year. They've had all the injuries. You felt like they're going to fall off, and then they've won, 16 to 21 games now. They're 5 back of the Yankees, and they're looking like a postseason team. So the Orioles will have to make that decision. I think as a fan, I understand, I can feel it. And I hope they do spend some money, because that also will show you, just like other fans, hey, you want to win. You want to bring some guys in, they're going to bring some flavor. Like, I know it'd be great to bring in some high caliber bats and arms, but don't sell the farm, because if you start selling the farm away to bring in guys, like that was the thing with Mancini. It's hard to let it go, but it was a business decision. You had to do what you thought was best for the organization. And let me ask you too, Justin, would you rather short term hold on to something that's nostalgic and brought you some good feelings, or would you rather hopefully see the Orioles be postseason or World Series contenders for a 5-10 year window?
I mean, I think Trey is probably the outlier in that case, because he is still the nostalgia factor is there, but also the production was still there. And then once they got rid of him, I was like, okay, this is Stowers time. And then they go out and get the guy from Tampa that they traded
Brett
for?
Phillips.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, that made me scratch my head a little bit, but I don't know. Sometimes I look at the DH production now, and I'm like, I wonder if there's a guy in Houston that could probably hit some bombs. But yeah, I just thought that was an odd move to rip the leader of the clubhouse out for a high A pitcher that gets bombed, and then a guy who gets Tommy John surgery the day after or whatever.
This is maybe a different perspective too. Trey is a tremendous person, and I think also I'm curious for him if I was happy that the things were finally turning the quarter. It was bittersweet seeing him finally be a part of a team that's, you can feel the change, but also he was the face of it and had so many things going on. Maybe being removed from that takes pressure off of him, where he doesn't have to feel like he has to have the organization on his back. But again, guy's unbelievable. He's a great player, but a better human. And I know people might not love the Astros, but if the Astros win the World Series, I'd be ecstatic for him. But you're right. It plays at the heartstrings. But I think what the Orioles have built is putting them in a position now to make some big moves. And I think I'm going to predict that, Justin, you're going to be pleasantly surprised with guys that they could be bringing in the future.
Okay.
I hope so. I hope I'm right for you. If I'm not, you know what? You can you can get on me, or you know what, I'll take you to lunch and I'll buy the meal, or I'll buy you a nice steak. We'll go to dinner.
I would love that. And then until then, we're just going to tweet at Ryan Ripken anytime something bad happens.
Please do. Please do. If I'm wrong or you don't like what I'm saying, have at it. Get at me. And I'll respond respectfully.
That's great. Yeah, there's so much there. Well, going back one, I love those teams you guys were talking about back in the day, the Orioles. Those teams were awesome. They hit the shit out of the ball. This is a Manny Machado podcast. Manny, one of my favorite teammates. But I think what's interesting, really, when you're talking about the Rays, going back to one of my homes there, the Orioles are doing a great job. And with the waiver claims and adding these little pieces, and you mentioned Jorge Mateo, who I was with in San Diego last year, and poor Jorge didn't even touch the field at all for almost 2 months straight at one point, nothing. And you see what he's had a pretty solid season, honestly, this year. And I know he's done much better, at least average wise and stuff, since I think post All-Star break. But they're doing a great job with the prospects and the system and all that. And you're totally right about everything. And now they're saying they want to spend that money. And if they want to be like the Rays or be a little bit better than Rays, you're saying it's exactly right. They keep doing it, but they got to hit on whoever they spend that money on.
Oh, no doubt.
If you're going to spend that money on that one piece or that one piece in the field and that one pitcher, you got to be right, because they have that young talent. That kid, the Henderson kid, looks, I know it's only a couple games or whatever, but he looks like he can do it, like he can really play. Obviously Rutschman and all these other guys. So if you're going to find that spot where you're like, all right, we need, that big bat in left field or whatever it is,
Judge,
you can't swing and miss. And then all right, we need the top of the rotation guy. You gotta hit, and then it all comes together for sure. Because I'm happy for them. It's cool to see, having basically no expectations at all, and to be in this position, that's awesome. That's awesome for those dudes. And I told Justin I don't know how many episodes ago before he said, are they going to trade Mancini? And I said, yes, they are. And I was right. And but I was wrong, because I thought they were going to fall off, and they haven't. So, even more congrats to them for that. But I hope it works out. And I don't know who that piece is or what the targets are going to be, but man, you're right. If they keep this all together and they bring in those one or two guys, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, that's a pretty good team right there.
They're there. And that's the thing that's what's going to be interesting, especially. And that's the thing is, do you want to spend money on certain guys and that's why when the whole Julio Rodriguez contract came out and you extended a guy that you thought's a young superstar, the hard thing with the baseball setup, as we all know, is you get the arbitration years, and to get a second contract takes a long time. And sometimes you're not getting that second contract till your late 20s, maybe you're in your 30s. And then there's the question of, if you sign a longer term deal, that the production might drop. And unfortunately, for Chris Davis, the production dropped. And that was also more, I think, mentally, he got into a funk, because and that happens, but because you saw how great he was. And even also Albert Pujols, awesome to see what he's doing. But when he signed that big contract leaving LA or leaving the Cardinals, did he really get back on that investment? And even right now with Mike Trout, best player when he's healthy, it's a lot of money you're investing in and in somebody moving forward. So teams want to be cautious. So extending Julio early, I think, is great. But so then you're looking at, if you have team controls over guys that you think are really good. So Justin, let me ask you this, Orioles fan, how does this rotation sound to you? Would you rather take a chance on this, where Grayson Rodriguez is healthy, you have Kyle Bradish is continuing to pitch like he has, and you have Dean Kramer and John Means is coming back, and I don't know how they do with the fifth man. You have Felix Bautista in the pen. What if you go and get another arm to set him up? Do you want to go out and get another pitcher that could possibly take away from having DL Hall come up and figure out his spot? If they had to take away someone else's ceiling? Because I think Grayson and Kyle Bradish, I know what Grayson can do, and I've seen what Kyle can do. Would you want to take that away from them, or would you rather see them go, hey, we're going to give Justin Verlander $35 million this year? Which I probably think you might say yes.
Well, obviously, yeah. I mean, I want them to get Aaron Judge.
Well, that's not happening. Tell you that right now. Aaron Judge has played himself into probably $50 million. It feels like maybe even more.
Yankee Stadium will burn to the ground if Aaron Judge goes to the Orioles. That's all I'm saying.
I think it's time, though. I think it's time to start bringing the veterans. Like, yeah, I think like, a veteran starter, a workhorse type starter, maybe somebody like, a position player, an everyday player that's, experience who brings playoff experience, just something to signal to the fans that like, look, we know it's been tough the last 5 years. We know a lot of you guys, switched to the Nationals, which I did for a while. Yeah, I'm a dual sport guy, dual team guy. I was Orioles and Nationals. Team Masson, that's what I am.
Okay, that's fair enough. Let that slide.
So yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are like me, and so that they're like, all right, we like the Orioles. It's been fun. It's been cute. Let's see them double down and let's see them actually commit to winning consistently and being the St. Louis Cardinals of the AL East, where every single year their floor is 80 wins. Like, how awesome it must be to be a Cardinals fan, and that even if your team is absolute dog crap, you're still going to win 80 games. Like, that's what I want the Orioles to get to, and that's that long-term sustained success. But yeah, let's go out. Let's get weird. Let's go sign some people that are expensive and old. But I would like to see them just show the commitment after, trading the Mancinis and trading the faces of the franchises and, your all-star closer too. Like, yeah, let's send a message. Let's spend a little money and not have the payroll of Max Scherzer.
See, that's hilarious. What's funny? I meant to bring this up when we talk about analytics of them hitting on guys. And this is where this is why like this whole conversation it's kind of changed my perspective this year. I'm for it. If there's someone that you like and you want to go get, if you think it's going to help the team, absolutely. I don't know if you guys know this. Felix Bautista was released by the Marlins in the lower levels. So that guy was released. He is unhittable right now in the major leagues. And again, that speaks to the development. So when you look at that, for what they're doing on the pitching side, is that something that, if you could save it for the guy you really want, and maybe, and I'm with you though, and that's the thing. It's actually, let me rephrase this. Would you feel better if the Orioles then would you want older guys, but what if the Orioles said, hey, Adley, we're going to sign you the extension right now? Wouldn't that also signal we're committing to our young guys that we want to do this? Or you're saying, no, go get me Judge, go get, find a way to go get Verlander. I think short-term options, I'd like to say this. I think short-term option guys would be better than getting I wouldn't want to go and sign Trey Turner for 6-7 years. I think he's a great player. But again, I think I want the players to get their dues, and I don't want that to sound, but that's just now seen from the business side. I feel the longer contracts when you're getting older just don't seem to pan out the same way. I mean,
I had this conversation with my friends the other day when Michael Harris of the Braves signed like an 8-year extension, and he's been in the big leagues for like half a season. And I looked at it from both sides. From the team, they love it because they get him at like $8 million a year. Then maybe it goes up to like 15 towards the end. But like from the player's perspective, and I actually wanted to bring this up to Brian a couple weeks ago when I saw this, was like, would you want to take that 8 for 80 when you're this guy Harris from the Braves? He's gonna be an all-star caliber player for a long time. Would you want to sell yourself short and probably miss out on tens of millions of dollars just to have that security? Or, that's just such a fascinating, like the Braves are always signing guys to 10-year deals when they're 20 years old, it feels like. And that's why their fans are so spoiled, I feel like, because all of their stars are locked up for the next decade. But from the player's side, is it good to have that long-term security where it's like, I could go out and, break my leg and I'd still make 10 million? So Brian, I'll throw that to you.
Oh, okay. This is the double-edged sword here, right? So from the players as a whole perspective, right, they want to keep moving the market more and more to make the contracts more and more and make more money for everybody, right? So that's why you see like everyone says like, oh, Boris wouldn't want that, or sometimes they say maybe the union wouldn't want guys to sign contracts like this because they think if they wait it out, they could do better. And they're probably right if they wait it out and they play really well for the next however 6 years or at least 3 years to get the arbitration. They're probably right. But in my personal opinion, I would, if I was one of those guys, I would sign that contract immediately because it just ends. Ryan said earlier, the grind. Like you still got to work hard. You still got to show up every day and do all the stuff to be a great player. But no matter what, you have that security now. Like it's done. You don't have to worry about that aspect anymore. That doesn't mean there's not, and I said this to you before, Jay, it doesn't mean there's not pressure or that like everything's just super easy and happy now because you signed a contract and you have financial security. It might make it worse, honestly. But at the end of the day, you know that you're going to be taken care of, your family's going to be taken care of, your kids are going to be taken care of, like whatever it is. And you don't have to worry about getting hurt or what. I mean, look at Scott Kingery. He looked like he was a cornerstone for the Phillies, signed that deal, hasn't panned out that way. And if he said no, I mean, where's he at now? He doesn't really have anything to show for it probably. And I know of another example like that too. So to me, yeah, everyone rags on the teams for locking these guys up, but man, that's a lot of money. It's still a whole lot of money, and you're set. And yeah, the Braves, I don't know, the guys. I think it's more of a story because it seems like it's mostly the Braves that get this done somehow. So everyone's like, oh, well, what are they kind of blackmail they got on these guys? But I don't know. Those guys, they must like it there. Maybe the Braves are more open to throwing it out there than other teams are. Maybe other teams aren't ready to commit to their players that soon. I don't know. But it blows my mind when people rag on Albies and Acuna for taking those deals. Yeah, they're great players, but especially where they come from, man, like that's you don't need anything more than that. Like they're good. So, and they're still going to get another contract. So it doesn't even, it's like
they wanted security for and I think that's
yeah.
Everyone's situation is different. Is that you got to decide what's going to be best for you and your family. And for Albies, to your point, that was the one I was about to bring up. Everyone like that's a steal. They robbed him. I go, well, Albies wanted the security right now, and I don't blame anybody for wanting to do that because it's your life, and the reality is you might not have that there tomorrow. And Brian, I want to ask you, and Justin, we can just because with the Julio Rodriguez, the incentive-based deals now moving forward, because I think this is a way for teams. I think this is what's going to be happening. I want to hear your guys' opinion. I think that would be a great way to defend, to protect the teams, but also moving forward, the players can still earn their money, but it's really becoming how well do you play as the contract goes. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I did a video on this, but Julio Rodriguez got $200 million at least guaranteed. He can make up to $470 million, but after 8 years, the club can then choose to keep him, or they'll move to keeping him and let him try to reach those incentives, or they can opt out of it. So it can range, the contract can range now from $200 million value to 470. Do you guys think that model is something that should be considered or implemented moving forward?
The incentive things is definitely interesting. So here in Japan, incentives are part of the contract. And that's pretty standard for at least the foreign. I'm not sure about the Japanese players, but for the foreigners, it's definitely standard. You get your guaranteed money like that, and then you get the extras added on for whatever it may be. In his case, now that contract is super complex, and I'd have to
A lot going on.
like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like
like look at it.
if we decline the club option, then we keep you for a few years, or then it's a player option and X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's nuts.
but from a player's perspective, if that would make the team feel better about at least guaranteeing me that much money beforehand, or guaranteeing me, a certain amount of money beforehand, it sounds good, but I don't know, because it really is like an outlier right now. So maybe he's unbelievable. First of all, what a great player he is already. But it's one season, and you assume he's going to get better and better. But I guess from the team's point of view, they're like, well, there's always the chance. So they're trying to protect themselves. So I do see it could be a win-win for both sides. I could definitely see that. And I do think it takes some confidence on Julio's part to sign that deal or agree to those specific incentives.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to look up the details of Julio Rodriguez's contract when you're talking about that, and it still doesn't make any sense to me. It could be anywhere from a 9 to 12 to 15-year deal. It could be worth up to, Jeff Passan's tweets were just, were not making sense to me. But I'm curious from like a player's perspective, like how many guys would be open to having that kind of deal where it's like, I'd rather just have like the flat deal where it's like, if I have a down year, I still get my money, but it's like, betting on yourself is something that I don't know. Are guys more receptive to betting on themselves now after seeing this, you think?
Well, I think that's the thing that's up for interpretation is because I think it's just the way that the style, and Brian, you could, or this, I want to hear, I'd love to hear your opinion, but I feel because of the process of major league contracts and the way that things going through arbitration and waiting for so long, it's not that I feel that guys don't want to bet on themselves. Like in this case, Judge bet on himself, but someone was still going to pay Judge. Whether or not he had a great year, he was going to get paid somewhere because someone was going to value them. With this type of contract of being so young, you're right. You don't know how it's going to pan out, but most guys want to try to get that value up front because they feel like they had to grind that whole way to get to the point of where they're at. And they believe, and they deserved it. They earned it. But it's saying, and as we all know, as you get older, yes, some of the freak athletes or the phenomenal players, like, seeing what Scherzer's doing into his late 30s or Verlander, to 40. But these are the 1% of the situations where guys are going to be able to have those types of deals. So that's just kind of my take, is that the incentive base when you sign a contract when you're 30 for this type of deal, I don't think makes sense. But when you're in your prime years, yeah, it makes sense because you believe that if Julio Rodriguez believes he can finish, be an MVP player and win an MVP or be in the top 5 or whatever it is, yeah, bet on yourself. But if you're a guy that's signing when you're 30 years old, and what are you going to do over your next 5? Can you be an MVP player over the 5 or 6 years? You hope so. But the reality is that your body might not react the same. So I don't know, Brian, if you felt or how you feel about those situations.
No, I totally agree with you. And I think there's probably little parts to contracts that have some sort of incentives in there that we probably just don't hear about, is my guess, as much because they're one, not a 21-year-old superstar or whatever he is now, 20, 21, whatever. And 2, not as complex as this particular deal. But, it's you're getting, to JA's point, you're getting that guaranteed money, doesn't, whatever it is for that season. And then the escalators add on to it, or they pick up options and all that other stuff. But, it wouldn't be my first choice personally if I was laying out a contract or, what I wanted. But at the end of the day, no matter what, he's taken care of, right? Like, he's good. If he only gets $200 million, I think he's going to be just fine. So same, it's what we've been talking about. It's security you're done grinding, and now you just go out and play as much as you can, really.
What about the point too where it's like going back to Harris, because that was the one that really was like, he's like an MVP caliber player. Granted, he's only played half a season, but isn't there something also to like the fact where it's like you only have a certain amount of like prime years, and you only have a certain amount of time to make the most amount of money that you can? And I know his contract takes them all through arbitration, which, you know, teams are just going to rip you to shreds and try to pay you nothing. But like, I don't know, the Braves love it. I'm sure, you know, Harris obviously loves it because he signed it, but it's also like, I don't know, I kind of feel bad because like this guy, if he could hit the open market when he was supposed to and not have signed that contract, I mean, he'll probably make way more than the $8 million per year that he's going to be making at the, you know, the prime years there. So that was the only thing I thought about was like, you know, dude, get your bag while you can get it. You know, get the biggest one that you can.
I think the other for him, he's what, 21 too, or 20? Yeah, he's young, right?
Yeah,
So
very young.
8 years. I mean, he's still going to get a nice deal after that. So assuming he plays like it seems he can play, because he's been absolutely electric so far too. So, you know, from his perspective, he'd be like, shit, I got 80 mil in the bank. I'll be 28 or 29. Pretty good, you know.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, he might not get that 7-year deal, maybe at that time. Who knows what's going to be the thing then, but another 3-4 year for however much. I mean, I'm sure he's going to get that. And then you're still good, but it's now Atlanta knows. It's also like Atlanta has these dudes locked up, and they're like, okay, so who can we go get here? Or we have this much money now. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like it makes everything so much simpler from both sides. And the last thing I wanted to say was, you know, in at least in well, all their cases, but Michael Harris's case, he was playing really well, but you kind of still never know if you could just get sent down for something stupid sometimes. So if you take that deal, you basically know that's not happening anymore. So you're like, oh, well, that's good. It would be a shock or a very big surprise if they were to do something like that. But at the same time, now you're like, don't even got to worry about it. It's done.
Okay.
My opinion.
Yeah.
Take the
Can't
money.
can't blame no matter what it is. You cannot blame guys for doing, you know, taking a deal that they believe is going to help them. Security in a sport where in a career profession where there's no guarantees that things are going to work out. They made the decision. The Braves seem to have a good rapport with guys understanding that, or have guys that are willing to do that. So you're right. Harris could make more, but he wanted to make sure if the worst case went wrong, that he was going to be, that him and his family are going to be in a great situation.
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys are exactly right. You've actually swayed me, which is rare. You know, did dig my heels in on this one. So
Perfect.
You know, as we kind of wrap up here, as we look towards the playoffs are going to be starting soon, like who are a couple teams that you're most scared of? Like who are some teams that you think this playoffs are going to make a deep run?
Well, as a fan, I would love to see, you know, taking out the Orioles aside with that, Seattle, because of the situations that they've had for such a long time, 20 years not being in the playoffs. They're the only team that hasn't gone to a World Series. I think it'd be great to see them, but they also do have the build to last. So I would love to see Seattle to make a run. I like what the Cardinals are doing a lot in the NL. I think if we're going to take away the giants over there of the Mets and the Dodgers and the Braves, which I think are all teams that probably people would favor the most, the Cardinals are just that team when you get to September or get to October, that if they're there, you feel like they are their pedigree in the playoffs just kind of speaks for itself. I know it's different management, but always when I think Cardinals and what they're doing, and you have some great players, and you have, you know, Paul Goldschmidt, you have the MVP on your team, you have Jordan Montgomery, acquisition pitching so well. I think the teams to watch would be the Cardinals and and the Mariners. And also, I'm not going to sleep on the Tampa Bay Rays. I think if they're in, I don't want to play Tampa if they're in. That's just my my take for the teams. But yeah,
Big Mariners podcast over here too. So we're definitely, Brian's been pulling for them. I think he had them in the World Series at one point.
Oh, really? Hop on the wagon.
I think I didn't have them in the World Series, but I had them winning the AL West. But the Astros just refused to ever stop winning, so they're not going to win the AL West. But they're probably going to be in the playoffs at least now.
Oh yeah, they're playing well.
I had my my AL World Series pick is all of a sudden in the race. So the White Sox are back hot on the trail. Didn't look good for a long time this season, but that pick could come back. And my Yankees, I said the Yankees weren't going to make the playoffs, Ryan. That was one of my bold predictions.
Ooh.
And boy, was I wrong for a lot of the season. And I probably still wrong, but it doesn't look quite as bad as it did for most of the year now. So I got that going for me.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Yeah, that's yeah, the Yankees, if they miss the playoffs completely, I don't even know if that can be physically possible. But boy, is it stressful times. And you thought just when Aaron Boone and the Yankees, the pressure was off for the first 60, 70 games of the season. The stove's hot right now. And whether or not I think, knocking on wood, you think they will hold on to the division. Even if they don't, the stress and the intensity is magnified in New York, because here's the thing with the Yankees. They haven't been getting over the hump, and they have to get over the hump, or there's going to be some big changes. So we'll see. We'll see. I also, side note, I would like to see if the other New York team do well, the Mets, because I would love to see Buck Showalter have a chance for to get to the World Series. I think obviously Scherzer and DeGrom, and I'd love to see Diaz come out of the pen with the trumpets in the World Series. I will overpay for a ticket to a Mets playoff game. Not even a Mets fan. As a baseball fan, can you imagine what a postseason safe situation would look like with him coming out of the pen? I need to be there. Need to find a way.
Couple things there. One, Buck Showalter, Pensacola guy. So right there with you. Two, I picked the Mets to win, to beat the White Sox. So I'm there with you too. Perfect. And three, go ahead, Justin. I already know what you can say because I already know what's coming.
But yeah, you're right. I had Dodgers over White Sox, so I don't know why I had Chicago.
You guys both had the White Sox.
They were
supposed to be good.
I know they're supposed to be good. Gavin Sheets is one of my good friends on the team, and everything was lining up, and then everyone was waiting for them to turn it on, and it just hasn't. Injuries and a lot of other things, but hey, you never know. They still got time.
They're only like a game back.
They're 2 games back. Looking at the standings right now.
The cool part about the White Sox is if you sit close enough to their dugout, you can help make managerial decisions on like pinch runners and stuff. So if you're within shouting distance, you can do that. Going back to the Yankees real quick, I'm just really surprised that Aaron Boone pounding the table hasn't made the drastic turnaround that I'm sure he thought would make them have. That's one of my favorite press conference moments of all time, right there. So I thought that would get the players in the dugout all amped up, but I guess it didn't. But yeah, I would like to ride with the Mets. My last question to you, Ryan, would be, you might have hinted at this, would be like the Edwin Diaz trumpet hasn't gotten old yet. Okay. It's teetering towards getting old.
The thing for me is I don't think it gets old, because when you get to the playoffs, the intensity level for everything changes. So right now, people, when the trumpets come on and everyone has their phone out, it's like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. That's like the same thing with Mariano Rivera was coming in to enter Sandman in the playoffs. Like that, every time you hear it, but it's in one of the biggest stages. Okay. I just think that'd be an electrifying, and even the intimidation factor, because as we know, if you watch playoff baseball, you go to a playoff game, that crowd energy is just different. It's just flat out different. And I didn't get to go to the game, but this is for the example. I mean, when the Orioles and the Tigers played, and it was the Orioles were down 2. Delman Young comes, hits a first pitch slider down the line.
I was there.
And you were there. Okay. So what was that energy like?
It was the loudest I've ever heard a stadium. I didn't know it physically could get that loud, and I think you could hear it across the city of Baltimore. It was like ear-piercingly loud when he hit that. And yeah, I think I have a little residual ringing still. It was great.
And that energy. And I mean, I went to my first game in Camden Yards in the last 10 years, a couple weeks ago. Great energy that's coming back to the ballpark, not playoff energy. It's way different, as you can see. So imagine a moment like that in one of the biggest markets in sports, in one of the biggest games of the year. I promise that the trumpets, it's definitely, I get it. It's getting so much headline now
everywhere.
But man, trumpet in the playoff would because also people would be like jacked up, but then deep down people are going to be so amped up, it's so tense, being like, oh my gosh, we're here, like, please win the game. Right now it's the spectacle, but when you're there in the playoffs, it's going to have more meaning, in my opinion.
I'm worried when a live rendition with Timmy Trumpet there, it worked the first time, but they're like, we want to keep having this guy back. And I'm like, if that's in like a big atmosphere, maybe a playoff game, and Timmy does it live, and then Diaz like blows the save, like, I mean, that's going to go down in baseball lore as an all-time screw up, and that's going to be a meme forever. So that's, it's cool. Every like college football this weekend, every football team had that as like their little whatever, like Nebraska had it, I think. So it's like, it's cool. It's getting overplayed. And in the playoffs, when he blows a save with it, it's going to be tragic. That's the only thing.
Man, there it is. So he's blowing a save in the playoffs.
You never know. I mean, he's been great this year, but I'm just worried. I just worry about all the pressure that we're putting on him with, especially the live rendition.
Yeah, live rendition, I get. Give me the trumpet, though. I'll overpay for a ticket. Give me the nosebleeds. Root for the Mets.
Yeah, I love it. Let's go Mets. Brian, that's all I had.
You're not going to ask him our last question?
What was our last question? Oh, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of so one of the ones, actually, it was, so this is a kind of a way that it can relate to everything. So when I got let go by the Orioles or the Nationals and started my career with the Orioles, and I felt awful about my mechanics, and we were in short season, and hitting coach Tim Raines Jr., who is one of my favorite coaches I've ever had. The organization was trying to change a lot of things, and they just said, hey, we'll wait until the off season to work on stuff. And then Rock came to me and just said, hey, we ain't going to worry about it. We're going to have fun. He's just such a positive, energetic guy. And I remember I was still struggling, and I was 0 for 2 with a game, and I was like 1 for 12 to start the year, 1 for 15, and really starting to press more. And I'm like, well, I'm going to blow my last opportunity. Anyway, I had a 33.5 ounce bat in my clubhouse, and I kept talking to him about it. And he goes, yeah, why don't you go grab that? And I go, Rock, I can't swing that, man. Like that thing is way too, that thing will swing me. And he goes, and he's not a very tall guy, not a big guy. And he goes, look at me. He's like, if my ass can swing this, your big ass can swing this. He goes, so I go in there. I'm like, all right, sure. And he goes, and what do you have to lose? So then I go in there, hit a double off the wall. I hit a homer later that game. And he goes, I told you. And then he said, look, this is the thing you got to remember. Your mind, he goes, no matter what's going on, he goes, you can feel terrible mechanically with everything, but your mind can impact whether you can have success. Doesn't matter anything else but your mindset. And I'm missing the full quote on it, but I just thought about that. I'm like, man. And I no matter what I did then the rest of the year, if I didn't feel good, it reminded me that I have to believe that I'm good. I have to believe I'm going to find a way, and that's okay. And I actually had the most fun. I felt the most confident. And that was a simple concept of there is nothing else in the world all of us, we want to perfect what we do. But the reality is, how many times do things go right in our lives? Not very much. Or it's always a grind. It's a struggle. But what you can control is your mindset. And as soon as you don't have control of your mind, or belief in yourself, it's only going to make the whole process harder. So I thank him for that, because I use that every day now of being, well, all right, I feel terrible about this, but hey, believe you can do it, and your mind will help you get to where you need to go.
Love it.
Yeah. So it was good.
That is the truth.
And he embarrassed me. He embarrassed me of saying I was 240 at the time. And he's like, 5'10", 5'11". So my pride was hurt that I couldn't swing the bat. But actually, to that day, then that's the bat I swung for the rest of my career. It was a log, actually. Ryan Zimmerman model. Shout out to him. Yeah. So
that's a big one.
Yeah.
Well, man, Ryan, we really appreciate it, man. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time and just talking about all sorts of stuff. Can't wait to keep in touch and follow you along your retirement journey and your sports media kind of path here, and to mostly hear about the pickup basketball games, because that's all that really matters. That's all that matters. Deal. I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted. Guys, pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and taking the time, and I know we'll be connecting soon.